So let's talk a little bit about some different styles of machines, shall we? As we've said, this is an A4 machine. This is the largest format, but they do come in all sizes and shapes. And every manufacturer nowadays have their own. And they'll all say, you know, they have their little quirks, they have their little details that you need to get your head around. There are a lot of basic features which are, you know, going to work. So let's have a look at this one. This is an old one of mine, but it was a favourite and still is. And this is the Cuttlebook. So as you can see, quite a small little compact machine. And again, it's got those pull down wings at the side, and it's got that pair of rollers under here, and it's got the cranking handle here for you to turn it and create the movement that you need. So that's a little Cuttlebook. This has a 6-inch wide opening. Now this one, when you put these wings down, it actually does stick down, so I can't move it. So let me turn it this way so I can show you. In here, the mouth is about 6 inches. So that's the limit of the size of die it will take. But that really is big enough for most people who make cards. And unless you're wanting to do bigger cards, or you're wanting to do frames, or you're wanting to do more mixed media type projects and you want something a bit bigger, this is going to serve you well. So that's something to consider when you're choosing a machine as well. We'll talk more about that in another section. So let's have a look now at one of the Sizzix machines. Now, I must admit mine is really, really old, but that is tantamount to the quality of the machine because it still works, it still serves me well, and I've had it nearly 20 years, I would say, probably, this machine. So let's have a little look at the different features of this one. As you can see, this one has a solid table. It doesn't have the fold-up wings. So it sits proudly on your desk, and it is a really solid machine. It's still got the pair of rollers under here like all the others. This one has a 6-inch mouth, and it's called the Big Shot. Now Sizzix still make the Big Shot, but it's been redeveloped over the years to be a wonderful machine. They do a large format, A4 bed, and they do a small format, A5 bed like this one. They're just slightly different in design. The principle of how it works is exactly the same. So again, my plates for this one are going to be old and dated as well, but they still do the job. And what I really love about Sizzix is they give you different tabs or shims or platforms, as we like to call them, and each of theirs has the design of showing you what each plate is used for. So it might be for cutting the wafer thin dies, like the ones we were having a look at earlier. So this is what we would call a thin die, a wafer thin die. As you can see, it is wafer thin. And Sizzix make a lot of different sorts of dies. Their Biggs dies, spelt B-I-G-Z, as you can see, are very different. So these come in a box which is about 5/8 of an inch deep, and they have this rubber surface. Now you probably can't see very well. Perhaps on the overhead you'll be able to see that there's the shape of a tag in here. And this is what I used to call the big fat tag, because it is a big fat tag. It's a beautiful size of shape of tag, and I actually had to buy this from an online site because it was so in demand and I couldn't get one, and I wanted one. So I had to go and look for it, and I've still got it, and I'm so pleased. So these actually within this rubber surface have what we call a steel rule die. Now that is sharp, unlike these which we've talked about, which are not sharp. These are, so you don't want to be poking your fingers in there like I'm doing, but it is in there. You can't really see it, but it's a lot deeper, and it's a really sharp cutting die. So when the pressure is applied to that, it squeezes the rubber down and lets that blade come up so it can cut the cardstock. So I've just a few different styles that I brought you of these. I don't know if we can see that. You can't really see, it's really tricky, isn't it? But that's got a pair of lovely flourish designs, very kind of rococo, very detailed. And then on this one we've got a bird cage and a bird and some other little bits and bobs. So these dies are brilliant because with these, you can see how deep they are. We can cut so many different sorts of material. We can cut leather, cork, fabric, really thick sort of chipboard, mount board, acetate. even wood veneer. So these dies are going to serve you really well. And they've done a series of quilting dies. So if you're somebody that likes to do quilting, you can buy quilted shapes in dies like this that make cutting your fabric an absolute breeze. I know as the quilters would say that's cheating, but I'm all for an easy life. All right, so let's have a look at some of the plates that we can use within our card making as well. So this is what Sizzix used to call a multi-surface platform. I don't know if they still make it, but they do certainly make the base plate. We've talked about the base plate, same principle, and then several layers of different thicknesses of plates that you can use, or they call them adapters because it adapts the sandwich for different needs. And as you can see, each one has a really great pictorial showcase to tell you exactly what sandwiches, what plates, what material, and what sort of die. So that's a really helpful resource to have right to hand with your machine. You're not going to have to go off and look for it somewhere. So one thing I can say is that every manufacturer will provide a really comprehensive instruction leaflet with their machines, and it is really worth familiarising yourself with those and reading them through, and perhaps working through each different process that's outlined within it, just to familiarise yourself with the dies and what's needed and that sort of thing. And then keep that to hand so it's always there as a reference. Really helpful, and there for good reason, because it can get very confusing. So with this platform, I know, because I'm very familiar with this machine, I've had it a long, long time, that this combination plate makes up the same as the white base plates I've been showing you on other machines. So even with the two platforms on top, this is my base plate. And then I still need my two cutting plates. Remember, the bread to our sandwich. Now you can see these are a lovely turquoise colour. And Sizzix do coloured plates. They also do sparkly plates. And I like that because when my desk is full of rubble, as often happens, these don't get lost. So that's a really good feature. And it also helps me to remember which plates these are. So that's a really good feature as well. And again, you can see that I've tried to keep one less cut than the other. So this one is my workhorse and this one is my depth to make up the sandwich. So it's the same principle. I put my my cutting plate onto my base plate. I then need a piece of card, she says, looking around for one. Let's just grab this. So, piece of card, put my die with the cutting ridges. Remember those little ridges that are going to do the cutting, not the smooth side. Cutting ridges down, and then my second plate on top. Roll that through the machine and that's going to cut the shape for us. So it's the same principle. One thing I will say is that if you want to, you can cut face up. I will talk about this more in more detail when I get further down the line, but you can easily, if you want to, just flip the whole sandwich the other way up and cut that way. The reason we sometimes do that is if we have a very intricate die, and they can get more difficult to cut cleanly, sometimes it's better to have the cutting surface facing up and it's closer to this top roller and it will give a little bit more pressure. So that, as I say, I will go into more detail about that as we go further down the line. Okay, so I have one more small machine I'd like to show you for this section. So this is a small base machine, A5. This is from a company called Vass & Creative. I know the companies have their own version of this machine as well, so it is out there in the market. This one's slightly different, and that's why I wanted to talk about it. We still have the manual handle, so we turn the plates and they will come through the machine as we need them to. All right, but this one is a little bit different in the format of its plates. So with this one, we have our bottom plate, which is not white, it's grey, that doesn't matter. But this one has a magnetic table here, which is attached to the base plate. You can remove it so that it allows you to do other things where you need a thicker sandwich. But for the most part, this is going to stay put on your base plate and it's magnetic. Now the beauty of that is that when we put dies onto it, they stick to it. So they're not going to fall around and shift in the machine. And that's a really good thing if you are trying to put, perhaps, as we've said before, two shapes together to create a frame. You can actually position them on the base plate and it will hold them in place, which is a really neat feature. The only thing about this one is that you are intended to cut down into the surface of it, so you would actually want your die face down like that. But you don't have to do it that way. I have also used it where I've had my die with the cutting surfaces up, then my card, and then the next cutting plate on top. So you're still in a way using two cutting plates, because you have this one, which they call their C plate, and you have the B plate, which is what we've looked at as normal cutting plates previously. And that still makes up the sandwich. So we've still got bread, it's just that this time we've got a slice of brown and a slice of white. And we've got still the filling in the sandwich. And again, you can use it either way, up or facing down, except this time it's the die that you would put face down. So you'd put your cardstock next to the bottom plate, and then your cutting ridges facing the cardstock, and then your B plate cutting plate on the top, and that would cut. If you want to do it the other way up, and there are times when I've done it, again, if it's an intricate die and it's not cutting so well, pop your die with the ridges up, then your card, and then your plate, but bear in mind that that will then get cut into. But that's fine, that's what it's for. It's for cutting into, hence why it's called a cutting plate. That's the basic of hand cranked machines. I always prefer a hand machine because I can feel what's going on inside the machine. You can feel if the die is moving through properly, if there's enough pressure, too much pressure, not enough pressure. You can feel it all through the handle when you're rolling that through the machine. There are also electric machines on the market, and these are fantastic. Obviously, it speeds up the process. If you have manual dexterity, perhaps you've got carpal tunnel or something, or a bit of arthritis, something like that, and you can't actually turn the handle, then an electric machine is going to be an absolute boon for you. And we can talk about those later on.